Yeah, carry on, you are audible.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Atul B. Shankar, and I am a research intern at the Institute of Chinese Studies, New Delhi. It is my privilege to extend a warm welcome to all to today's Wednesday seminar titled The Lee Jae-myung Victory in South Korean Politics, Context and Implications. South Korean politics witnessed a shocking turn on December 3rd, 2024, when former President Yoon Suk-yeol briefly declared martial law, shaking the foundations of the nation's democracy. Swift action by the National Assembly reversed this move, and just months later, Lee Jae-myung secured the presidency in the June 2025 election. While his victory restored democratic norms, South Korea remains deeply divided, grappling with economic stagnation and regional complexities in East Asia. This will be the central focus of our seminar. The speaker for today's session is Professor Sandeep Kumar Mishra. He is a professor in Korean Studies at the Center for East Asian Studies, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, India. He is also an honorary fellow at the Institute of Chinese Studies, New Delhi, and a distinguished fellow at the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies in New Delhi. He has published several research articles and book chapters and features in newspapers such as Korea Times, The Tribune, The Indian Express, Financial Express, The Pioneer, Times of India, and The Statesman. The chair for today's session is Ambassador Skand Ranjan Tayal, who is currently the chairperson of the India Republic of Korea Friendship Society. He was the ambassador of India to Uzbekistan and the Republic of Korea. Ambassador Tayal has a vast experience in bilateral, multilateral diplomacy, and he is a frequent public speaker on contemporary affairs and regularly writes for academic journals and the Asian Age. Before I hand over the chair, I would like to ask all participants to follow a few housekeeping rules. All participants shall be muted during the seminar. Questions may be posted in the chat box along with your name and affiliation. Alternatively, you may use the raise your hand option during the interactive session. You shall then be called upon to unmute yourself. I now hand over to the chair. Over to you, Ambassador Tayal. Thank you.
Thanks, Shankar, for that introduction and framing the topic of the discussion today. And my thanks to Institute of Chinese Studies for organizing this presentation and discussion on a very important subject, the presidential election of our special strategic partner, Republic of Korea, which really went through some difficult times and difficult domestic political crisis. Um, uh, of course, the result of the presidential election did not really spring any surprises, but my surprise for me was that President Lee still could not get more than 50% of the vote, even after background of martial law and of the other side, and the uh, other candidate was fully identified with the outgoing president, impeached President Yoon. Now, that of course reflects the deep polarization in Korean society. The details about the election, implications, background, of course, will be fully dealt with by my friend Professor Mishra. So I'll make some general observations on some reflections on the political health of really democratic societies. Democratic societies where real elections, real voting takes place, not like Turkey, where the opposition mayor has been put behind bars, or Russia, or whatever. Now, there are some disturbing trends. There seems to be some dearth of leadership in the real democratic world. Except our Prime Minister Modi, really, whether you take G7 or go little outside, hardly any leader is sure of his or her second term. There are frequent changes of governments. And frankly, I would find it difficult if I am asked to note down the names of the G7 leaders who are in Canada. I will have to really strain my memory and my, to write down the names of the seven who were there. So there is something missing. And if we look at the last decade, there were some names. Angela Merkel was widely respected, German chancellor. Then Barack Obama also had a certain presence, certain acceptance in the wide world outside United States. So that kind of leadership is absent in the democratic world. Then the second point is that the voters perhaps have got unrealizable expectations and aspirations. The voters in all democratic world want low taxes and full social security, low unemployment, etc., which really no government can deliver. In fact, there have been some very good books on to the level of quality of life and general standard of living and health and all of that has been steadily improving over the years in most democratic societies. But the voter remains dissatisfied and it punishes the ruling party mostly. And that's why the governments keep changing. So that is a difficult problem, but how to and in some democratic societies, it seems that the far right seems to be gaining ground. We are seeing this is in President Trump's United States, in Europe. The far right parties are gaining ground more and more. And in the dominant discourse, it seems that the principles and ideology is taking a backseat, and it is only a question of totally transactional relationships, national interest, and immoral foreign policy. So that is a trend we have to understand and imbibe and adjust. Then third trend in the democratic society seems to be the shrinking of the middle ground. That people who could compromise, who could talk to each other and come to some kind of a common ground, that number of percentage of voters is shrinking. And perhaps a very poisonous and partisan social media has to blame for it, but that is a different story. I think social media was blamed for all this polarization in Korea also. There have been many articles on that. So the spirit of give and take and compromise is missing, which was very evident in Korea also. The Democratic Party, once it controlled the National Assembly, it made governance impossible for President Yoon and paralyzed the government. And he, of course, overreacted and imposed martial law. But that is something which real Democrats or people who believe in democracy need to ponder over. Then, while I also wrote some article on this in Deccan Chronicle, and I was looking at some information. There are some interesting data points which I would like to mention here. And much of our audience today is youngsters. That in Korea, youth up to 30 years have about 31% of the vote. 31%. And about half of them are uncommitted. So they are not wedded to any particular party, and they really are totally influenced by their own issues, their own problems, their own challenges. And most the youths are apolitical. The Korean campuses are very quiet. Earlier, the democracy was really brought in by a combination of student activism and labor activism. But now the campuses are quiet. Youth unemployment is 7.5%, which is huge for a developed society. 7.5% don't have jobs. there is acute housing shortage. The house prices around Seoul, and where almost more than 10% of the population, perhaps 20% lives, are out of reach. It results in delayed marriages. The youngsters are forced to stay on with their parents. There is a shrinking population issue faced by Korea. And these are some of the issues which were really of great importance to the voter in Korea. And there was interesting, observation by I wrote one. I'm not sure, Professor Mishra, whether that was the right report. That there is a resentment among Korean youth men against the women achievers in education because they are getting better grades, and in all competitive examinations they are faring very well, whether it is for law or for medicine or for services. So there is some kind of a resentment against them. That is interesting article I read. Now,
Yes.
but the very encouraging conclusion which one can draw from the 3rd June election, presidential election, is that entire turmoil generated by 14 December 2024 imposition of martial law by impeached President Yoon, that era seems to be over, and South Korea will be back on its course for real democracy. Governments change frequently. There is real freedom of expression. And what was most uh, important or encouraging for me was that the civil society in Korea is now so democratic that they did not accept any of the martial law decrees. They came out in droves in the middle of the night in the front of the National Assembly. The members of National Assembly gathered there. The media did not follow any martial law decree, and they were broadcasting, telecasting real-time information about all this defiance of martial law acts. And most of the armed forces also did not really act uh, obeying the president and the defense minister. There, of course, Sandeep will perhaps elaborate. I read somewhere that the commander of the US forces in Korea advised the Korean army just to stay out of it and let the politicians handle it. And another encouraging fact was that the turnover, voter turnout, was 79.4%. That is very, very encouraging. It was highest since 1997. So governments change, presidents change, but the future of real democracy in South Korea is safe. That is, with these introductory remarks, I'll hand over to Dr. Sandeep Mishra. Kindly speak to 35 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A.
Thank you, sir. I think it's really important and very comprehensive introduction to the topic. I will share my screen. This. Can you see it?
Yes, please.
You can see the full screen now?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So basically, because of all these questions you raised, especially the question that how you can say leadership problem is there in several democracies across the globe, and how people are having unrealizable expectations. I think, and how youth are basically suffering, how middle ground is actually becoming, you can say, shrinking more and more. So I think all these issues are quite well displayed in the recent crisis, and then finally election of a new president in South Korea, Lee Jae-myung. It is called Lee Jae-myung in Korean, so I will generally use Lee Jae-myung. So I would
So
like
sorry
to.
to cut you off. Could you please put your screen on full screen?
I have done it.
I
Um,
can see it.
Sir, I don't think it's on full screen yet.
Okay, so what should I do? I try to do it, but I'm not able to do it. It
If
seems
you could
because
just put it on slideshow mode.
I did that actually. Slideshow mode. Like, look, now this is slideshow mode. In my computer is showing, but
Oh,
oh, can I send it to you? Maybe,
yes, sir, you can send it to us if you'd like.
and we can take a 1 minute break.
Yes.
Okay, just a minute. Send it to you by what? By WhatsApp?
Yes, sir, you can send it.
So I don't have your number. It seems.
Or, sir,
Snigdha, I
or
can send it to.
yes, sir, Snigdha ma'am's number works.
Okay, just a minute. I've sent it Snigdha WhatsApp number.
All right, sir, we'll just share it shortly.
Yeah. Mhm.
So sorry to cut you off.
No. So basically, so I'm going to basically talk about Jae-myung selection because all these issues are important and they are displayed in this selection. So first, the results, as Tayal sir was mentioning, that Jae-myung won election, which was almost sure. But at the same time, we need to realize that last year also, 2022, when he fought against Yoon Suk-yeol, he lost by just 0.7% margin. And this year, if you look at what increase he had just got 1.6% more votes than what he got in 2022. It means that I think his popularity has been almost same. So it means that even though a party from which a president was elected and that president declared emergency martial law, but people are not unhappy with that party, it seems. 41%, more than 41%, the candidate from People's Power Party, Kim Moon-soo, he got. So it's really interesting. Some other facts about, how many different regions actually, you can see that how much voting percentage happened. Uh, next. Next. Yeah, you can see different parts of Korea, how much percent of votes have been uh, given to Lee Jae-myung or Kim In-soo. And there was another candidate, third candidate from New Reform Party, Lee Jun-suk. Next. You can see there are, I think, around 44.39 million voters in Korea. Actually, to give you some interesting facts about the Korean thing, actually there are around the Korean population, South Korean population is 51.67 million approximately. Total voters are 44.39 million. And as Tyasa was saying, turnout was very high, second highest in the Korean history, and that was 79.38%. Another interesting fact about Korean presidential election was that they had provision of early voters, like people who are not somehow able to come on voting date and cast their vote. They are given some opportunity to have early voting. So early voting was 2 days, 29th and 30th May. And early voting itself, actually, 34.7% people, they cast their vote. So almost 15.42 million people already on 29th and 30th May, they cast their vote. They had also very good system of overseas voters and almost 2 lakh, 2.05 lakhs overseas registered Korean voters. They also voted in 6 days, 20th to 25th May, across 118 countries. So I think this is also interesting fact about Korean thing. Now next. Uh, but actually, there are so many information, and I can keep talking about different things. But I would like to concentrate on two, three things. So these are the three, four things which I'm going to talk. Yoon Suk-yeol, how he announced and what happened. Then Jae-myung in Democratic Party, what kind of contest he is having, and then his background a bit. And then finally, I will talk about general nature of Korean politics. Next slide. So Yoon Suk-yeol, this is you can say in one picture you can understand about what happened in those period. December, I think 3, he announced last year, December 3, he announced 10:20 night, I think. He announced emergency martial law. And then the same night, somehow National Assembly people, they were able to reach National Assembly and they rejected this national, you can say, emergency. And then finally, in the early morning, he had no choice but to remove it. And then an impeachment proposal was launched. It was basically brought into Korean National Assembly. First time, not enough candidate because actually it must be passed by 2/3 majority. So in South Korean National Assembly, there are 300 seats, and out of 300 seats, at least 200 members they should support. Then only impeachment motion could be passed. But opposition party combined, they had around 192 votes. So 8 votes they needed from ruling party, that was People's Power Party. And that party, they did not participate. Actually, one or two people they came, but otherwise, so it took another, you can say, attempt. So in next attempt, next week, again impeachment motion was brought in, and this time he was passed. He was then the impeachment, which is done by National Assembly, it goes to what is called Constitutional Court of Korea. And then Constitutional Court of Korea, it deliberated for a long time. And finally, on 4th of April, they decided that impeachment by National Assembly is valid. And then I think, you know, that elections were declared and then elections happened. Next. Why did he bring, actually, Yoon Suk-yeol, why did he brought national this emergency? There are 2, 3 reasons which was given by Yoon Suk-yeol himself. The first one was that it was to deal with anti-state, anti-national forces in South Korea who are in collusion with North Korea and China. He also alleged that opposition party members, they are also aligned with all these anti-national forces. And they are not allowing him to discharge his duty as president of South Korea. The third allegation was that actually in last several elections, National Assembly elections as well as presidential elections, rigging has been happening, and these riggings are happening on, you can say, through internet, through other means, and I think North Korea and China, they are behind all these riggings. So these are the expressed reason why he brought national emergency. But the real reason people say that it's basically that what happened in actually last year, April, South Korean National Assembly had elections, and 192 seats out of 300 seats were won by opposition party. And his ruling party, People's Power Party, they were reduced to 108. Now, the problem was that in this scenario, National Assembly was not cooperating with Yoon Suk-yeol decisions. So he was feeling, he was trying to do many things and he was not able to do it. So that was one of the reasons why he was feeling suffocated and probably he did that. Then I think National Assembly, they were about to pass a special investigation team for President's wife, Kim Kun-hee's corruption charge investigation. Actually, in the last, actually, he also expressed that around 19 or 20 people which he had appointed in different positions in last 1.5 years, I think National Assembly has been trying to impeach all of them. They were not impeached immediately because even if National Assembly impeaches, it goes to Constitutional Court. So many of them, they have been revoked, but I think they tried to impeach several people who were appointed by Yoon Suk-yeol. So all these things he was feeling and he wanted to save his wife also, his wife's corruption charges also. And finally, he said that this was because when he was presented to Constitutional Court, he said that I did it because I wanted to warn opposition party. I wanted to warn anti-national forces, and it was not meant to be, you can say, for a long time. It was just for the sake of warning them. Next slide, please. Now, what happened that after political this upheaval, if you look at the debate inside Korean politics on impeachment, you can see that how even opposition, like ruling party, People's Power Party, they were quite, you can say, confused what to do. In the beginning, they did not support impeachment, and they used to keep, you can say, defending him. I can give you that. I think uh, many of them they justified. They said that look, it's possible. It's there in Constitution, Article 77 of South Korean Constitution. It gives president power to declare national emergency. So this is nothing wrong. And his perception was that things were not moving in proper, appropriate way, and that's why he did that. But there were other groups in ruling party at that point of time. They were basically saying that no, I think so. There are three different types of people you can read here, and last group was that saying that this was impeachment was bad, and he must be actually, you can say, laws must be allowed to take their own course. So I think these are the problems, and that led to lots of, you can say, I can next slide, please. I think this National Assembly, what happened? Next slide. The Article 77, it says that president has power. Next slide. So basically, if you look at People's Power Party domestic, you can say what was happening inside the party, you can see that Cho Kyung-ho, who was floor leader, he was being removed from being People's Power Party, and then somebody who was close to Yoon Suk-yeol, he became the floor leader in National Assembly, Kwan Sang-dong. Similarly, the top leader of party, Han Dong-hun was basically a junior to former President Yoon Suk-yeol. He was also from prosecutor background, and he was at one point of time very close confidant of President Yoon Suk-yeol. But then I think there was some gap in both of them, and then finally he was removed from party, and somebody again who was close to Yoon Suk-yeol, Kwan Yong-se, he became the interim leader of party in People's Power Party. Next. So this led to lots of, you can say, especially the two, I have just given screenshots of two newspapers, progressive newspapers. One is Hangere Sinmun, another is Pyongyang Sinmun. Actually, when first time People's Power Party National Assembly members, they did not participate in impeachment process, the next day, newspaper published these photos of all the 105 members who were not there in National Assembly, who did not support impeachment process. Next slide, please. So this is the context, and this is the reason why People's Power Party, the way they have fought this election, that was really problematic. There were several candidates. You can see the several candidates. So left-hand side, all the candidates, 8 candidates were there. And out of 8 candidates, the first one, Kim Moon-soo, he became the party, you can say, candidate for the presidential election. But then what happened? The Yoon Suk-yeol supporters, they somehow brought in a new candidate. His name was Han Duck-soo. Right-hand side, you can see the picture. And just 15-20 days before the, you can say, elections, actually Han Duck-soo was the person who was basically prime minister in Yoon Suk-yeol government. And when Yoon Suk was removed by impeachment, he became the caretaker president, interim president of South Korea. And he resigned few days before the nomination thing. And People's Power Party, they wanted to make him the candidate. But Kim Moon-soo, he did not budge. He did not accept that. And finally, through some other, you can say, party mechanism, finally he became the candidate of So I'm saying that this was a very, you can say, complex and difficult scenario for People's Power Party. Next slide. Now coming to Jae-myung. Jae-myung, I think I'm talking about recent past of Jae-myung, if I talk that first, that I think he was presidential candidate in 2022 also, and he lost by a very slim margin, 0.7% vote to Yoon Suk-yeol. But there were several corruption charges on him, and those corruption charges, Jae-myung says that these are all political. We'll talk about that. But I think he realized that if he is not president, then I think it's going to be difficult for him. Yoon Suk-yeol, he comes from Prosecutor General office background, so he's going to create lots of trouble for him. So Jae-myung, he decided to become member of National Assembly. So there was a by-election in 2022 June, and he fought election and he became member of parliament. Now, he also became a leader of Democratic Party in 2002. Actually, he's floor leader. He's not floor. Actually, he was leader of party. He became leader of Democratic Party. Still, I think Yoon Suk-yeol government, they tried to strangulate him, tried to bring corruption charges, tried to somehow put him into jail. And at one point of time, actually, Lee Jae-myung was so desperate that he started hunger strike, August 2023. And almost 24 days, he had hunger strike, and finally he was hospitalized. Many people say that it was like the stated reason was that he was against government policies, and the real reason, many people say it was political. He wanted to avoid his arrest. There was also an assassination attempt on Lee Jae-myung on 2nd January 2024. And I think when martial law was declared, at that point of time, there were three or four people who were targeted by Yoon Suk-yeol, and they were supposed to be arrested and they were put into some bunkers. Lee Jae-myung was one of them. Han Duck-soo was another actually person. Then I think the National Assembly speaker was another actually. Kim Jun, another actually YouTuber. All these people, they were there. So I think he had been targeted by Yoon Suk-yeol government quite, you can say, intentionally and quite intensively. But I think he was quite, you can say, he was quite popular in his own party. There were some factions inside the party of Democratic Party also. But in case that is required, I can discuss that. Like Ina Kyan was there, Salhun was there. Ina Kyan actually he went out of the Democratic Party and he had his own party. He comes from Chola province, which is basically a very important bastion of Democratic Party support. So Salhun actually also became quite marginalized. There were other people who also Hong Young-pyo and others who got, you can say, marginalized. But then finally, on 27th April, he was declared presidential candidate of Democratic Party, and almost 80% people they supported within Democratic Party, they supported his candidature. And we know that on 3rd of June, elections happened, and 4th morning, 6 o'clock, 6:20 a.m., when National Election Commissioner announced that Lee Jae-myung is victorious, immediately he became, because actually this was a special election, not following the procedure, because normally it's 1 to 2 months time is given to new president. So there's a president-elect period. But this time there was no president-elect period. Immediately he became president of South Korea. Next slide. Next slide. Background, I think many of us, we are aware that he comes from a very poor background, and he had to leave his study after primary school. And then he simultaneously working in some factories and also trying to have his own other degree, like middle school, high school, and other degree. But he was very hardworking. 1986, finally, he got a law degree. And then he became a human rights and labor rights advocate. He was working hard and he was an activist also. And there was a time when he was working for all these things. And then he realized that he can't do anything. So there was a very famous meeting in which he was trying to persuade government to do something for these human rights and the people who are at disadvantage. But government was not listening and he started crying. And then he said that I'll enter into politics. And then he entered into politics. 2005 he entered, 4 or 5 actually started doing something. And I think 2010 he became mayor of Sangnam city. Sangnam city is basically quite closely, I think it's very near to Seoul, capital city. Actually, Seoul is surrounded by Gyeonggi province. And Gyeonggi province, there's one city called Sangnam city, and he became mayor there. He got re-elected in 2014. And then I think he resigned and he became a presidential candidate for, like, he wanted to become presidential candidate in 2017 also, when Moon Jae-in won. So he and Moon Jae-in, they had, actually, there were other candidates also, but he was also one of the candidates from Democratic Party in 2017. But I think he was not successful. Moon Jae-in became candidate and he was not successful. Then I think in 2018, he became governor of Gyeonggi province. So there's one small city, now Gyeonggi province, the whole province he became governor. But he resigned in 2021 and then 2022 elections he fought. And then I think current history I told you in the previous slide. Next, please. This is basically, you can say it would be there, it's going to be there on the YouTube. So you can see that is his journey, his life journey. Next slide. I think this is basically when he was January 2024, there was an attempt to assassinate him. He was basically, he because there was some cut, very serious cut. And if it would have been 2 millimeter more or something, he would have died or something. Next slide. Actually, next slide, please. Next slide. Actually, there are lots of, you can say, issues with Jae-myung personality also. He is a very, I think, very aggressive person, a very sharp person, very intelligent, and he has covered a big, you can say, very long journey. And that creates lots of, you can say, baggage for him. I'm not saying that all these allegations are true, but there are so many allegations on him. You can see some are very trivial, like he's having links with crime rackets. There's no proof till now. All these, an actress accused him that he was involved in adultery. But again, this was again the same actress. Finally, she basically asked for forgiveness and she withdrew the case. He had been abused. He had been said that he abused his sister-in-law. But his Jae-myung's explanation is that what happened that his sister-in-law was misbehaving with his mother, and in a, can say, that heat of movement, actually he had some bad words. Then I think he had been also accused that I think he forcefully sent his elder brother to some psychiatric hospital. But again, there are explanations. So all these, but more serious problems are basically this Baekhyun-dong. Actually, there's some area in Sangnam city and then in Gyeonggi province where new town and new area they were developed. And there are allegations that those were given to people who are in close contact with him. And in the process, actually, those private contractors, they earn lots of money. So lot of these problems are there. I think we'll talk in case anybody interested in that. But many of them, they are basically also, I think, not very substantial. But I think another, actually, this Sangbangul group, actually, there was a group actually, which basically does business with China. And there are allegations that through this group, Jae-myung, he provided $8 million to North Korea to arrange his visit. And he had visit to North Korea. Actually, when 2018, Moon Jae-in visited North Korea, he did not take Jae-myung with him. So basically, probably Lee Jae-myung was not happy. He wanted to go to North Korea. But again, still all these cases are pending, and we don't know what kind of the election law violation cases are there. That on a TV debate, he was talking about Kim Moon-gi, and he said that I don't know this person. And then I think there were some pictures revealed that in some foreign visit, he could be seen in a picture with the person. So all these allegations are there, and because of that, previous slide, please. Previous slide, sorry. And that's why basically, no, this one. So that's why there was the movie one, yes. That 2016, there was a movie in Korea. It is called Asura. And many people say that this is based on story of Lee, but this is not correct, because it was 2016 one, and two, actually it's based on, it's a story of a, you can say, bad cop and a mayor. Both of them, they are corrupt, and they have been actually contesting with each other. So but I think but many I think at least few people, they believe that this is basically related to Lee also. He said that it's an imagination. Next slide. So now coming to, so basically this is a very you can say complicated things in Korean politics, and that's why I want to draw towards two important trends. There are other things which I will talk. One is that success at any cost is really problematic in Korean politics, and because of that, people from both Conservative Party, Liberal Party, and even some socialist, you can say Justice Party. Earlier they used to have Justice Party. I think the leaders, they have committed suicide because they were alleged to have some, you can say, the corruption charges. I have just mentioned certain names. An Sang-yeon, actually, he committed suicide in 2004. Chung Do-yeon, actually vice mayor of Seoul, he committed 2019. Park Won-soon, as late as 2020. Actually, Park Won-soon, if he would have been alive, he would have been a big contender of Lee Jae-myung in Democratic Party. Noe Chan is considered to be a noble politician in Korean politics. He was from Justice Party, and there were some allegations of corruption, and he also committed suicide 2018. No Moo-hyun, former president of South Korea, he committed suicide in 2009. Chang Jae-won, actually, most recently, actually, this year, I think March, sometimes, or February, March, I think, the Chang Jae-won, actually, another leader of PPP, he committed suicide. I think there are lots of, you can say, these things, and this is very, very serious. I somehow, once I wrote in Korea Times saying that in Indian politics, Gandhi was a person who very seriously had the debate about means and goals. And he said that you should not use wrong means to achieve good goals, because those goals are then they're not going to be sustainable. They're not going to be pure. So I think probably this debate is not, it hasn't happened in Korean politics. So you can say intensively as it had been there in other countries. So I think this is one of the reasons why. And the second is basically revenge politics. I think I can name, like, these are the people who have been president and top leaders of South Korea. Next slide, please. And you can see, maybe next slide will be better, I think. This side also, this side will go. Previous one. You can see that, start from the bottom, the first president, Lee Seung-man, he was basically overthrown from the, you can say, presidency, and he was exiled to Hawaii, and he died. He survived there 8 years. He died in Hawaii. He never came back. Then the next president, Park Chung-hee, the third one, he was assassinated in 1979. The next president, Chandu Wan, you can see that he was sentenced to death for bribery charges, and also Gwangju uprising. You can see how next president, Notewu, he was also jailed for bribery. Next president, Kim Young-sam, was also basically alleged to have some bribery. Kim Dae-jung also had some bribery. You can say No Moo-hyun, he committed suicide. Lee Jae-myung, he was in jail for corruption charges. Park Geun-hye. So you can see how. So basically, what happens that when opposition party comes to power, opposition leader captures the presidential office, they try to take revenge from the previous leader. So this is a very, very difficult trend in South Korea, which could be also seen. Next one. So I would basically also try to comprehend South Korean politics. These are the 4 important things I would like to show you. Next slide. First, regional divide. I think in the first slide I showed you, first or second slide, that this was the result. But there was one thing very stark. It seems that Korea is divided. Right hand side in the slide, you can say the people who are voting, all like majority of people voting to Kim Un-soo, People's Power Party. And in the left hand side, people are voting to Liberal and Progressive Party, that is Democratic Party, Jae-myung. But this is not unique to this election only. Next slide, please. You can see these are the previous 5 elections which I have brought in. You can see that the trend is more or less there. Right side always votes to Conservative Party and Conservative Party candidates. And left side, when I'm saying right side, I'm talking about the up, let's say the left top, actually Gangwon province, and then Chungcheon, Namdo, no, not Gangwon north and Gangwon, Gangwon and, okay, just a minute. The first is Gangwon province, and then I think basically Gyeongbuk north and Gyeongbuk south. Left hand side, the always blue you see, this is basically Cholla north and Cholla south province. And the center actually Gyeonggi and Seoul. And in between there are 2 states called Chungcheong north and Chungcheong south. So Chungcheong north and south, they keep changing. Otherwise, I think things are almost same. Next slide, please. I think Tayal sir was mentioning about this thing. I think this is also gender and age divide is also. You can see generally older people, they are voting to Conservative Party, and the younger people, they used to vote for Liberal Party. But in recent elections, there are trends. Actually, last 2 presidential elections, you can see that male member of young generation also, they are like people who are in 20s and 30s. They are also voting. Lots of them, they are voting to Conservative Party also. So you can see that Korean society, not only on regional line, age-wise also they are divided. And this actually there's a saying for these people who are voting to Conservative Party, the young 20s, 30s male members of society, de naam actually, people who are in 20s or 30s. So I think this is another, you can say, fault line in Korean politics. Next slide, please. You can see that how, I think, girls and boys, they are, like say, male and female, they are voting in different age group actually. So I'll come to that in case you need more explanation. Next slide, please. And another interesting thing, ideological divide. As I told you that even though Jae-myung was fighting this election in the context of emergency, which was declared by emergency martial law, which was declared by PPP candidate, I think still he was not able to increase his votes more than 1.6%. If you look at the rating of political parties, it goes almost like uninterrupted. So this is very interesting fact of that Korean people, they have made up their mind, and they are not very basically listening to other side of the aisle. Next slide, please. So these are the, you can say, some trends. Another, you can say, important feature of Korean politics, which is also quite there in different other countries. But in Korea, I would say that religious leaders, they are actually some churches and their pastors, they basically come to political rallies. They have their own political party indirectly, they are running, and they play lots of, you can say, important role in Korean politics, especially from conservative side. And there are lots of YouTubers, lots of fake news. There was a fake news uh, when Lee Jae-myung got elected. After 2 or 3 days, he was able to have telephonic conversation with Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba. But those fake channels, they were propagating that these are false news. Actually, Trump did not talk to Lee Jae-myung. And what was the proof? They were saying that whenever Trump talks to any foreign leaders, he tweets. Since he did not tweet about Lee Jae-myung telephonic call with Lee Jae-myung, it means that he did not talk to Lee Jae-myung. Similarly, they were saying that all the, you can say, like with Japan also similar thing. So all these things are there. In case it's required, I will talk more about that. Recently, there is also controversy related to Lee Park School. Lee Park School, they call it actually. Lee is basically Lee Seung-man, the first president, and Park is basically Park Chung-hee. Lee Seung-man ruled Korea for almost he was president of South Korea for 12 years, and he was having lots of authoritarian tendency. Similarly, Park Chung-hee he was a military leader. He captured power in a military coup, and he ruled Korea for next, I think, 1961 to 1979, almost 80, you can say, 16 years. He became president in 63, but 61 he captured power. So basically, I think all these people, they have started a school called Lee Park School, and basically this is going to, like they are going to recruit lecturers, and those lecturers are going to be sent to different primary, secondary schools, and they are going to teach them about history and Korea and all those things. And these lectures, the people who are trained here, many of them, they are having very new right kind of tendencies, in which they are saying that Japan is a good country and Japan had helped Korea. They are saying that we should be thankful to Park Chung-hee or Lee Seung-man because they brought hard politics in Korea. So they are doing all the conservative, you can say, very far conservative things, far nationalist things they have been talking about. So they have been trying to do that. Next slide, please. I can give you three figures. I can give many, but I think the central one actually you can see is a fortune teller. His name is Chan Gong. He is supposed to be, I don't know, these are reports, but we don't know for sure. But he is supposed to be the master, the guru of Yoon Suk-yeol's wife. And even Yoon Suk-yeol also goes to him. And when he came to presidential debate in 2022, he wrote on his palm in Chinese character, King Wang. Basically, probably Gong suggested him, there are allegations that Chan Gong actually, he suggested that you can do that, then I think you are going to be victorious. So they have been basically also getting, suggesting the politicians, and they are influencing public opinion. The first one, Pastor Chan Gwang-hun. Chan Gwang-hun is also a very famous pastor. He basically runs a like Sarang Chail Church. So he is basically very powerful. He is also indirectly running a political, you can say. Next slide, please. No, sorry, previous one. Yeah, so he is running a, you can say, a political party also. The last one, actually, he is a lecturer. Actually, he's very popular. He teaches very interestingly. Like in India, we have Vikas Dibikarti, Khan sir kind of people, Alak Pandey and others. So he's also very famous, can say, YouTube teacher, you may say. And Chanan Gill, actually, he's also making all the, you can say, weird allegations or democratic process and elections. So I think these are the very difficult issues in Korean politics. Next slide. YouTubers, I think I have given here. I think there are YouTubers who are having huge popularity in Korea, and especially the red one. They are conservative party thing in left hand side, and this is the blue chart is basically slightly older one. It's 2019-20, I think. So the new one is this one. This is basically April. Next slide, please. there are several actually right-wing organizations in South Korea, and they have been trying to uh, do all kinds of, you can say, support to conservative party, and in the process of supporting them, they are so many undemocratic, very ultra nationalist, very like let's say homophobic kind of, you can say, idea they are being propagating. Next slide, please. There are several websites also, you can go and see that. I'll not talk about all of them. Next slide. Next slide, please. So overall, I think this ideological divide is very strong in Korea. I could see that conservative, everything conservative and I think liberals, they have probably in economic domain they have some overlapping. Both of them, they are for open market economy. But if you look at other things, they are quite different. Like in economic domain also, you can see that conservative, they are pro big business, liberals, they are pro small business. Uh, Conservative, they look for economic growth, and the conservative, they are more interested in social welfare. Political positions are also quite conservative. They support democracy, but basically they want strong leadership. They want, you can say, strong nationalism. They are against multiculturalism. They are against gender justice. Yoon Suk-yeol was supported by lots of youth people also, conservative people, because he promised that after coming to power, he is going to remove gender justice ministry. So all these kind of forces, they are against choices. They use religious groups in politics. Liberal, if you look at their positions, they support democracy, human rights, multiculturalism, gender justice, diversity, secular politics. Foreign policy also, this contrast is quite interesting, that conservative, they are pro-America, they're pro-Japan, they're anti-North Korea and anti-China. What happened? Hello?
So just give us a minute, please.
Next slide, please. Next slide. So next, no, previous one. So this is the last thing which I would like to talk about Korean politics, and that is basically how uh, party system is very weak. If you look at the four important political parties present in South Korean politics, I think none of them has history of more than 10 years. Actually, three of them, they are basically just less than 5 years. And what happened is not that these forces are not there. You can see that lots of merger, lots of split, lots of new party making happens because ideology is not that, you can say, important. You can say, sorry, this party ideology is not very important. Their basic ideology is more important. Grouping is more important. Leaders are more important, and regions are important. Like which region you are from. So all these things, they are basically, they have weakened the party system. Not only they have weakened the party system, but I think what happened that these individual leaders, when they achieve power, they suppose somebody becomes president of South Korea, they try to influence all the administrative and other, you can say, constitutional positions in South Korea. If you look at even university and research institute in South Korea, they also got affected. They get, we can say, affected quite substantially if a particular president is there in the power. So this is, you can say, last thing which I would like to submit to you, that in Korean politics, the party system is weak and democratic institutions are still I think they need to further, you can say, strengthen. Next slide, please. But fortunately, three other things they are going fine. If you look at economic domain of South Korea, it appears to be relatively free from big and small businesses. They keep some you can say, but overall you can say that the economic processes, they have been continuous, they have been consistent. Technological advancement have been also continuous, and culture industry. Next slide, please. I have got some this in case anybody interested. If you look at the left hand side, from 1961, when the Economic Planning Board was established by Park Chung-hee, till 2025. 25 is basically estimate data. You can see the growth rate, and this growth rate had, you can say, especially forget about pre 1987. 1987, Korea got a democratic constitution in a way. So 87 onwards, you can see where if there is a conservative president or a progressive president or liberal president, the economic process has been, you can say, quite, you can say, consistent. Uh, you can see the uh, R&D also. I can see the blue graph, right hand side up. I think R&D has been also growing in Korea. This is the data from 2010 to 2022. You can see that this is also having quite consistency. And the bottom, actually left hand side, you can see cultural products. Actually, they have been also been growing in Korea despite some problems in political domain of South Korea. Next slide, please. So I think Jae-myung, he has won this election and he had to do lots of things in economic, technological, and cultural domains. But he had to also unify Korean people. He had promised that he's going to have more dialogue, more transparency, and implement uh, policies more effectively, more transparently. But foreign policies are going to be a big challenge because there are lots of regional and global issues. But people say that he's pragmatic, he's sharp, he's careful, and person of strong resolve. So he had to, next slide. So domestic, these things he had to, you can say, take up. Divided society, social media, conservative, they are looking for a chance. Economic growth is actually the 2025 estimated 0.8% growth only. Rich poor divide is growing. Next slide, please. Now, last but not least, but this foreign policy he had big challenges, especially the contest between US and China. If it intensifies further, it's going to be a big challenge for him. He has been saying that America is the most important country for South Korea. Our alliance with America is very, very important. But at the same time, he has to deal with America on at least two, three issues. One is basically tariff issue. The second is basically, let's say, Trump may restart his demand that South Korea should contribute more for the troops which are American troops which are stationed in South Korea. And if South Korea is having continuous economic relationship with China, that may be unpleasant for Trump, and Trump may put pressure on. So how he is going to deal with all these things is going to be a challenging task for him. On China issue, I think he is quite, you can say, open to having strong economic linkages with China. He always, because in presidential elections also, there were several debates when Taiwan issue was raised, but he said that no, I'm not going to take up this issue. He's tactful. He is saying that let's be less loud on that. Japan also, he's pragmatic and he wants to continue relationship. Unlike other progressive leaders, his second phone call, first phone call to America, second phone call was to Japan, not to China. That is also important. In dealing with North Korea, he would like to have engagement, but lots of things have changed. You know that North Korea had declared that South Korea, now they are, you can say, a rival country. And I think let's see how he deals with North Korea. I'm also hopeful that probably he will bring more attention of South Korea towards India and Southeast Asia, because previous president, he abandoned New Southern policy. So probably this government will bring it back. So these are the some submission which I had about this election and its context and implications. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Mishra, for this very elaborate analysis, which gives a lot of data points also, and will be very interesting for all of us to chew further which way South Korean polity is headed. In your slide, you mentioned that Mr. Cho Hyun may become the foreign minister.
Yes,
He was the ambassador here and very
yes,
popular ambassador
yes.
just 5, 6 years back. So in case he becomes the foreign minister, I think we'll have a good approach and a good uh, 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 door open with him. One question before, there was a lot of talk by both candidates about some amendments to the constitution.
Mm.
And this problem that the presidential term is 5 years, National Assembly 4 years, that the two elections should become coterminous. Do you
Mhm.
think there is any realistic chance of that happening in the President Yi's term?
I think it's possible that there are fair chance this time because I think this is a period in which Democratic Party is having huge majority in parliament. So they have 192 seats. So they would like to get it done this time only. And there are three things which they have been saying. One is basically they want to have more judges to Supreme Court. So some reform in judiciary. The second, actually, they want to reduce the power of prosecutor generals. And the third is basically presidential term. They want to have two 4-year terms of president rather than present one 5-year term. So there are chances that I think this could happen in this period because actually 2024 this National Assembly was elected, so they have 4-year term till 2028. So by 2028 they may try to bring together presidential and something actually parliamentary election together. So many scholars they are saying that at least 50-50 you may say. This time is a much more you can say possible.
Thank you. There are a couple of questions in the chat box. Shankar, would you like to take over? You are on mute.
Yes, sir, we can begin the interactive session. There are a few questions posted in the chat box. Mr. Prashun asks, good afternoon, sir. Right after taking office by Lee Jae-myung, when the opponent was waiting for more pro-China policy through its very small duration to judge about, but unexpectedly he gave a call to Japanese PM right after Trump, and also in the context of Indo-Korea relations, which kind trend we are going to witness, especially keeping Moon Jae-in era as 2018-19 was very important in the context of India-Korea relations, or Lee will mostly keep himself in the domestic situation style. Sir, please mention before even Lee Jae-myung also showed some indication towards that in order to revive the domestic demands, he announced to provide some support money to his citizens.
Actually, when he came to power, he said that the most important issue for me is Simin Kyangje, means citizen economy. So basically, people's economy is the most important issue for him. And as I told you that he is a pragmatic leader. So actually, in the very first speech he gave to National Assembly, 4th of June, noon, he gave a speech, and he said actually openly that whatever good things are there from Park Chung-hee, I will take it from Park Chung-hee. Whatever good things about Kim Dae-jung, I will take it from Kim Dae-jung. Probably he is one of the only person who had courage to say Park Chung-hee and Kim Dae-jung in one, you can say, sentence. Because normally the people who support Kim Dae-jung, they hate Park Chung-hee. And the people who support Park Chung-hee, they hate Kim Dae-jung. Because both of them, one is basically economic development, another is basically democratization of Korea. But he did that. So I think he's a very pragmatic person, and he had, you can say, mandate also to do so. And that's why he realized that right now, American alliance is more important, tariff negotiations are more important, and our trilateral US, South Korea, and Japan connection is more important than China. So we need to keep it intact. At the same time, if you look at his debates in last 2 months, And even before, he said that, look, Taiwan is a Taiwan, another country, like we have no, he doesn't commit to Taiwan, unlike Japan, unlike America. So I think he is quite sensitive to Chinese sentiments also. And he had lots of connection in China. Actually, during Yoon Suk-yeol period, there was a time when he had meeting with Chinese investors in South Korea, and that became a big controversy. That what kind of meetings happened, what kind of debates happened there, discussions happened there. So he know that there is a there's a there's a you can say manifestation, like there's a manifested way to do conduct yourself, and there's basically substantial way. So I think he is going to keep that there. That US Japan important, but Chinese with China economic cooperations are going to continue, and it could be improved in case it's possible. On India China, I think today I tweeted also, our Prime Minister tweeted, and even South Korean President also of his tweeted that our Prime Minister and Jae-myung, they met in Canada, and they were laughing. They were very cordial with each other. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has invited. It is published in South Korean newspaper that our Prime Minister Modi invited Jae-myung to India. So hopefully he comes and he restart the things which were stopped after Moon Jae-in. Rightly, you said that Moon Jae-in basically he was new Southern policy. He tried, actually, at least he created lots of connections, lots of network, lots of research institute. Because pre-Moon Jae-in period, there was no India Research Center in most of the research institute. Nobody was specializing in India that way. Not many people. But Moon Jae-in government, through New Southern policy, they provided funding to university, they provided funding to research institute, and they. So even if he's not there, Yoon Suk-yeol was there for 2.5 to 3 years. I think those institutes are still there. They are working. So my thing is that probably he can take it further. EJ, I'm quite hopeful. Let's see.
Thank you, sir. The next question was asked by Swada Rawat. Swada asks, thank you for the insightful presentation. I am Swada Rawat, pursuing my MA International Security at Sciences Po Paris. My question is, in light of President Yoon's controversial framing of domestic opposition as collaborating with North Korean communists, how do you evaluate the continued use of North Korea as a political instrument in South Korean discourse? Could a leadership under Lee Jae-myung recalibrate this dynamic, particularly in terms of engagement versus deterrence in inter-Korean relations?
I think it's a very important question. I think it's a really, when you look at, suppose, ultra conservative in South Korean politics, who support Yoon Suk-yeol and Yoon Suk-yeol support them, they communicate with each other through YouTube. Actually, at one point of time, Yoon Suk-yeol, when he was impeached by parliament, but still the matter was pending in constitutional court, he said that don't watch new, let's say, established news channels. Don't read newspapers. Go and watch YouTube. They are giving right information. And what was the right information? They are saying that North Korea and China, through online and offline activities, they are basically interfering in South Korean elections. But there have been at least several investigations till now, and there has not been a single incident, single, you can say, evidence that North Korea or China anyway they intervened. Actually, when impeachment happened, uh, at that point of time, it was produced by one ultra conservative website. There was a news that 93 Chinese, they are being captured by American soldiers in South Korea, and they were put into Nagasaki somewhere, some in Japan. Okay, they were taken to Nagasaki. This was entirely incorrect information. South Korean authorities they denounce it. American authorities in Korea, South Korea, they denied it. But this is the problem of fake news. This is the problem of, you can say, parallel truth, which is there. That whatever evidence you can give is not enough for them. They want to believe something, and they have been believing it. Whether it's true or not, it's not. So I think this is a big problem, and I think on engaging with North Korea, it's really because there was a time when uh, Moon Jae-in was able to restart. But it seems to me that especially after Hanoi actually was a big disappointment for Kim Jong-un. He wanted to achieve something through all the diplomacy, and domestically, many people they felt that our leader failed first time, because there is a narrative in North Korea that our leader always makes you can say right choices. But this was, I think, one of the disappointment of North Korea. And now, if you look at their nuclear and missile capability, they have gone beyond, you can say, a point of, you can say, return. So I think I feel that he should engage North Korea as he had been claiming, but I think it's not going to be easy. The best part is that he normally progressive leaders in South Korean politics, they have connections in North Korea. They have people who can, for example, one of the four first appointments he had, there was somebody who was in Sejong Institute researcher called Lee Jong-suk actually. He's a senior person. He had been unification minister earlier, and like say I know him personally also. I was associated with Sejong Institute. So Lee Jong-suk actually he had been made national, you can say, intelligence agency, you can say, chief. So basically, he had been trying to put people who are useful in connecting to North Korea. And they have some communication channels in North Korea, it seems. So when they try to operationalize all those connections, I'm not sure, but I think the issue is that how much Trump allows it to do. Because I think this time, Trump is again saying that he wants, you can say, talk with North Korea. So if North Korea, because probably Americans directly, they are not able to placate North Korea. But if Trump wants via South Korea to deal with North Korea, Jae-myung and all these connections, they can work and they can bring some good results.
I'd like to add that I think about 25% of the population and voters in South Korea are very anti-North Korea, and they even supported martial law and followed whatever justification was given by impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol for martial law. And second, in course of time, certainly the incoming president will open channel of communication with the North, and normally it is done through their intelligence services. In the past also, was always done by intelligence services. But the present priority will be to deal with President Trump, and he will not like to do anything which will annoy President Trump, and President Trump has too much on his plate. And first thing is the tariffs, the 25% tariff which has been imposed by United States on Korean exports. So I think that will be his top priority. Any other question, Shankar?
No, sir, there are no other questions in the chat box. No hands are raised in the. Yes, sir, there is one question in the chat box. Madhavi Tampi asks, thank you. I have learned much from this presentation. You said that the sharp ideological divide and academic and polemics do not seem to affect economic progress and growth. How do you account for this?
I think, yes, I think this is a very difficult question, because I think when I'm saying that ideological divide in Korea, basically, except for this large and big businesses. Why I'm saying, because if I look at South Korean politics, one of the features of South Korean politics is that ideological spectrum is very narrow. If you are leftist, then you are out of politics, because there is North Korea already. So for a very long period of time, anybody who was like left to center, all these people, they were called palgengi. Palgengi basically means communist. Palgan is basically red color. So they are being discredited in South Korean politics, and you can't survive if you are called a socialist or a communist in South Korean politics. So I'm saying that ideological divide is very sharp, but if you look at the spectrum in which they operate, they have all agreement with market economy. They have all agreement with democracy. They have all agreement with free market. They have all agreement with growth. I think probably in last 10, 15 years, some progressive leaders, few of them, they are talking, like Jae-myung is one of them, who talks about welfare mode. But I think normally they talk about growth, and they say that through growth we are going to achieve welfare. Because in India also we had debate that uh, growth or distribution. So people, they said that first have growth, otherwise what will you distribute? So in Korea, I think this is the situation that growth is, they have consensus overall about growth. So I'm saying because of that, that economic domain, it keeps functioning as it has been functioning. Whereas in other political contests, in other foreign policy related contests, both the parties are far having huge gap between both of them. But in case of these, let's say, fundamental economic issues, they are able to move forward consistently. That's my submission.
Professor Alka Acharya, you would like to come in?
Yes, please. Good evening, Ambassador. Thank you very much for joining us. And hi, Sandeep. Yeah, it was, I agree with Madhavi, a lot of learning out here, especially as the phrase goes, the Dao page of the South Korean politics came out very well. My question relates to this observation. Not question, really, it's a kind of a query that there is in my mind with reference to that statement you made about how democracy is fragile, democratic institutions are weak. So, really, there is this problem of how democracy functions. Now, if we look across Asia, there are at least about, as many varieties of democracy and democratic functioning and institutions as there are countries. They culturally mediated these institutions. There is a whole range of historical legacies which permeate the institutions that are created. Now, what are we really looking at when we say weak institutions, fragile democratic kind of frameworks? Because are we taking certain benchmarks or certain models and then saying that all of us should aspire to that? Or we are saying that these countries are mediating democratic institutions or democracy in their own way. Clearly, it's not going to approximate to an ideal. So, how do we therefore make any kind of assessment about these democracies? I mean, we call them democracies, but what came out from your account was really quite a chaotic way of functioning, and the way in which corruption and personalities and all sorts of superstitions are blended into this, which is something we see in our own country. So, just a broad take on how do you see this whole business of democracy?
Actually, ma'am, in Korea, they call that we have first class economy, first class technology, and third class politics. So they are so dissatisfied with their politics that they call it's third class. I think I'm not saying third class because, when I'm saying democratic institutions are weak, at the same time, probably I should have also told everyone that the democracy in behavior of people are quite, you can say, ingrained. If you look at, Tyal sir was also mentioning that all these things happen, but it happened peacefully. Somehow the process was actually when military were trying to intervene, I think people came on streets and they tried to protest it. Last time also 2017, they were able to impeach a president through constant peaceful protests on the streets. So that way, like people who are coming to vote, 80% people, they voted. So this is really, you can say, a very, because normally, if you look at OECD country, economically developed country, you will see that voting percentage doesn't go beyond 60 actually. This is very unique that people are basically looking at politics, and they are, you can say, at least in the crisis situation. Now, the first part of your question, I agree that, there's no benchmark as such. I'm not benchmarking any country because, all the democracies across the globe, they are processes, and they are basically getting democratized or not, other way. So it's not that any country is static. They say America, I will say that America was democratic, more democratic earlier. It was less democratic now. Maybe Korea was less democratic in Yoon Suk-yeol period, more democratic now, kind of. So basically, this is a process which is happening, and I'm not, can say, benchmarking with anything. I'm trying to benchmark with the principle of democracy. For example, separation of powers should be there. For example, independent judiciary should be there. For example, the minority, their rights must be protected. For example, free and fair elections must be there. So if I take all these variables, then I see that president office is quite important in South Korea. Whoever becomes president, all other offices, they get quite heavily affected by that. So that's basically I'm trying to say. And the political party, suppose political party, so they keep, like, they don't have anti-defection law or anything as such. So what happened that people keep changing political party, they can keep from this group, and they can make another group, another group. And so I'm saying that in this sense, political institutions are weak. But I'm not saying that, basically we are trying to bring out problem areas in Korean politics. But if you look at people's behavior, 80% people voting, I think people going on the street for, you can come to Seoul city and you'll find that almost every weekend there are protesters on the streets. They are protesting for one issue or another issue, sometimes labor issue, sometimes other issues. So this is a healthy democracy that's happening, peacefully happening, and it's allowed to happen. So I think that was you can say, my submission.
No, thank you. I think that's well said, because here we are making a distinction between, let's say, certain core universal underpinnings of what a democratic system should be, which should be reflected across different forms and different countries. And then there are, of course, the particular kind of values or particular kind of the aspects which relate to history, culture, ideology, legacies of various kinds. So yeah, thank you very much.
It is 4:27. Shankar, there is one more question. Quickly read it out, and that will be the last.
Yes, sir. Arya Prasad asks, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for this enriching session. My question is, given the context of increasing multiculturalism in South Korea, how do you see the future of integration policies under the new leadership?
I think multiculturalism is going to be a contested issue, because physically, like if you look at the real data, Korea is becoming more and more multicultural. But if you look at the response within Korean society, is divided. Progressive, they welcome it, they are okay with this. But I think lots of conservative people, they are quite uncertain. Sometimes some small factions, they are hostile also to multiculturalism. So this debate is going to continue for Korea, in Korea. And basically it's going to be also influenced by what's happening outside the world. What's happening in, say, United States, what's happening in other parts of the world, that is also going to have huge impact of multiculturalism in South Korea.
So thank you, Professor Mishra, for this very stimulating discussion, and I think we have got a lot of food for thought. And I also believe that democracy has very deep roots now in South Korea. And as you said, judiciary, freedom of expression, and separation of powers, etc. And also thanks to our listeners and questioners. Shankar, you would like to make closing remarks?
Yes, sir, with your permission. Yes.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. With this, we come to the end of today's seminar. We thank Professor Sandeep Kumar Mishra and Ambassador Skand Ranjan Dayal for gracing today's seminar with their esteemed presence and for giving us their precious time. We also offer gratitude to the audience for joining us today. The video of today's discussion shall be available on the ICSS YouTube channel. Thank you.
Thank you.